Hey everyone, it's Sarah from sarahsbites.com. So since it is apple season, I wanted to show you guys how to make this super quick apple cake. And it's one of those recipes, if you're in a time crunch, it is so fast to put together and make, and it tastes delicious and it's moist inside. So let's get started with the recipe. We'll start off by peeling 3 medium-sized apples, and I went with Washington apples because I like how sweet but also tart they are. They're not too sweet, but they're also not super tart like a Granny Smith. So if you do go with something like a Granny Smith, I do recommend adding maybe a couple tablespoons extra of sugar in the recipe, and we'll go over that again later. So you're gonna peel these. You can do them with a peel as well. I'm not a fan of peels in my cake, so that's totally up to you. And then make sure you slice them very thinly because we are not going to cook these pre-hand. So make sure you slice them super thin. And if you're enjoying watching this recipe video, please give it a thumbs up below. Consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. I would love to see you guys join the Sarah's Bites family, and let me know in the comments below if you give this recipe a shot or if you have any other recipe requests. And question of the day, what is your favorite apple? If you're an apple snob like me, my favorite is Washington or Kanzi. Oh, those are so good. They're just kind of hard to find. They're not at every grocery store during apple season, but let me know what's your favorite. Next up, we're gonna grab a large mixing bowl, and to that, we're gonna add in 3/4 cup of granulated sugar and 6 tablespoons of room temperature butter, and we're gonna mix that together. And you guys, use a spatula first to kind of mix these, or you're just gonna have a big old mess like me. And you would think after all this time I would remember this, because I feel like every baking video I put out there, I somehow make a mess with either mixing sugar or mixing flour. So it's one of those things that I just forget every time. So make sure you use a spatula first, mix it for about a minute, and then we're gonna add in 3 eggs, and they do not have to be room temperature, and go ahead and mix that for 1 more minute. Then we're going to add in 3/4 cup of whole milk. It does not have to be room temperature either. And then 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now, if you have a cinnamon hater like I do in the family, you can exclude it, but I love cinnamon in this apple cake. I did not put it in this time because, like I said, cinnamon hater in the family that wouldn't eat the cake otherwise. But usually I throw in 1 teaspoon of cinnamon as well. Also, go ahead and throw in just a little pinch of salt and then mix for another 30 seconds or so. And then at this point, we're gonna add in our 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and then 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And here I actually remembered, since I already made a mess with the sugar, to stir everything with a spatula first. So either do that first or get a deeper bowl before you mix. And at this point, we don't want to overmix, so just do another 10 to 15 seconds and then use a spatula to scrape down the sides. And lastly, we're gonna fold those apples in, and then we're gonna grab a baking dish. I used a round 9x9 non-stick baking pan. You can do glass as well, but I find that with glass baking dishes, the cake will stick more. So totally up to you here, but I just put a little bit of oil in the pan, spread it around, and then threw in some flour to prevent the cake from sticking, but you can also use parchment paper. Dump your batter in there, level it out, and then make sure your oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're gonna bake this cake for about 40 to 45 minutes, or until a toothpick comes out clean. So I would definitely go with the toothpick method because every oven is different. And then make sure your cake does cool off before you dust it with powdered sugar. That is optional as well, but I think it tastes so much better with powdered sugar. And like I mentioned earlier, if you end up using a tart apple, add another 2 to 3 more tablespoons of sugar in the recipe. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you next week. Bye.